Hi, I'm Paul Germain, your host for Smart Boating. As a prospective boater or a boater, you know that a boat is comprised of a lot of different pieces, whether it's the hull, the topsides, cabin, the engines and the propulsion drives, and of course one of the most important parts is the interior. And within that, the upholstery itself. That's what you sit on, you lean on, you lie down on in a bunk. So we're going to focus on that area of a boat today. And joining me is an expert in the area. Her name is Krisha Planche of Onboard Interiors. Welcome, Krisha.
Hi, Paul.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
We've got a really neat show here today.
Great.
Boat upholstery and interiors. But before we get into it, can you share with our viewers a little bit about your background in boating and onboard interiors?
Sure. My background includes growing up boating, powerboating, offshore sailing, racing, and deliveries up and down the coast and abroad. I got my first Coast Guard license at a young age, and I also went to the Westland School of Marine Technology. I am also a member of the American Society of Interior Designers.
Wow, okay.
I also wanted to give you a little bit of background on the business.
Yes.
And my family had a business, yacht interior design business out of Connecticut. And about 15 years ago, I opened up the Marblehead office of Onboard Interiors. And we're now located in Ted Hood's original boatyard in Little Harbor.
Okay.
So we're a full-service interior design firm. We work on new construction from CAD designs to refitting an older vessel. And the boats range from about 30 feet to 200 feet.
Okay.
And we have all kinds of furnishings, fabrics, and accessories, all suited specifically for the marine environment. And every piece we make is custom made by hand, and it's a unique process.
Wow. Well, you've got just the right experience for a show like this one today, so why don't we get right into it?
Okay, great.
Okay. Well, Krisha, you know, this whole subject of boat upholstery is just a massive one, and we could talk for days on that. But I thought we'd try to just share some of the most important points with our viewers today.
Sure.
And there's really two angles we could go at. We could go a brand new boat that has to be totally outfitted, or a used boat that come in for a refurb or a refresh. And I think I'd like to focus on the latter of those two today.
Sure.
So why don't we're going to try to walk people through the process. And my understanding would be that the first part of the process would be a meeting with the client. Is that right?
Exactly.
Yeah, how does that go? So
recently we met with a couple. They're owners of a 10-year-old 46-foot Bertram, and the boat needed a facelift. The interior and exterior spaces, especially the upholstery, needed updating. And we were doing the mattresses, the bedding ensembles, the main salon, as well as the exterior spaces, flybridge and cockpit.
Okay.
So the first meeting comprises of is talking to them about how they're using the boat. Are they using the boat as a weekender? Are they a young couple with children and dogs? Are they just going abroad and they need everything done before their trip?
Okay.
So we need to find out how they're using the boat. And that's
Alrighty.
really something that when you select a marine interior design firm to work with, you need to be able to talk and communicate with them about your needs and how
have
you're
a good
using the boat.
dialogue. Right,
Exactly.
right. So that first meeting, you're trying to get a grip on the application, how they're going to use the boat, so you can pick the right materials.
Right, for your needs.
Yeah.
For your needs.
Okay. Well, Krisha, when you have a meeting and you're talking about the different options, naturally you talk about the options for the interior of the cushion, the foam, if you will, and then the fabrics and so on. And I guess you'd probably start with the foam. I've got a piece of foam here that looks pretty authentic. Probably came with the boat. What's your perspective on whether to use old foam or new foam as you have these meetings with different people?
Right. So we get that question a lot. Can we use the old foam? And I would say 98% of the time we are replacing the foam.
Okay.
Unless it's a brand new boat and someone just does not like the coverings, then we would consider using the foam. But if the foam has any damage, if it has any mold, mildew, just like this example, that's why it's wrapped up in plastic.
Okay.
It's been damaged, and it's actually an older kind of foam that they have. It's a residential foam. It's a yellow foam.
Oh, okay.
And if we try to use the old foam, which is mold and mildew, it's already damaged, it's breaking down, the corners won't hold a 90-degree or any kind of curve, any kind of shape.
Okay.
So it's not worth reupholstering a new item using the old foam.
All right.
It's just really a bad idea, and it's really not worth saving the money.
All right, it's not a huge part of the overall cost, so you're better off
isn't.
ditching the old foam as attached as you might be to it.
Right.
Right, okay.
Exactly.
All right. Well, you've got some examples as a new foam here. Can you tell us what the different types are and where you use them, that sort of thing?
Sure. So this bench is 4 examples of the use of the foam.
Okay.
The one that you're sitting on right now is actually using a memory foam laminated to a marine foam.
Okay.
The marine foam that we use is called blue foam, and it's great for the marine environment because it's mold and mildew resistant,
Okay.
and it actually has a fire rating.
Oh,
So it's great.
okay.
And in the last few years, they've made some great innovative products like the foams and the fabrics that we are using. So
Okay.
we definitely want to use these.
Yeah.
So the one that you're sitting on, again, it has a memory foam laminated to the marine grade foam, and it's incredibly comfortable. We make a lot of mattresses using this, as well as seating, and we
So-
can use this in an interior application.
A common name people would recognize as Tempur-Pedic, that type of
Exactly.
technology, right? Is what
Exactly.
we're talking about here with the memory foam.
Right.
Yeah.
These 2 pieces are actually using the marine interior foam. This one is a medium density, which is the most common for
Okay.
seats and backs.
Okay.
So that one is probably, 80% of the jobs are done
right.
with medium density.
Okay.
This one is a version of a soft foam,
Yeah.
just to give someone a little extra comfort,
Okay.
especially for seats. You might want a softer seat back.
Right. Okay.
The one behind us is using an open cell foam,
Oh, okay.
which is used in exterior spaces.
Oh, I see. Well, how does that
And-
work?
So we can pour water right through this.
Oh, okay.
As long as we use the right fabric and the right lining for drainage, this will be great in exterior application.
All right. You want that drainage so you
Won't-
don't run into this mold and mildew that you would using other
Exactly.
materials.
Especially in exterior spaces,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. So each type of foam is for a different type of application, and that's where people want to talk it through with you how they're going to use it. How about cost-wise? Are there different brand names, or is there much difference between the different types of foams?
There really aren't a lot of name brands that are sort of telling you the differences.
Okay.
It's mostly in the densities
Yeah.
as well as the application. Like there's marine foam for interior, there's the exterior. So there's not a lot of differences in brands, but in terms of cost, the memory foam will add to the cost
Right.
by about double.
Oh, okay.
And
All
the
right.
exterior foam is more than the interior foam as well.
Okay. But again, it's one of those points, just like you wouldn't probably use old foam if you can avoid it. You
Right.
don't really want to trim costs on the foam.
No.
You want to get the right foam for the right application, right?
Exactly, exactly. And it's like choosing, the right application for the job. And it's a little bit like Goldilocks, finding, it's too soft, it's firm, it's medium density, it's extra firm. So
Right.
it's listening to, how the boat owner wants their boat set up
Makes sense.
and customizing it for them.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, Krisha, we were talking about the foam and the differences between the different foams and different applications. Of course, the fabric is the thing that most people have physical contact with, so that's super important.
Yes, definitely.
And, some people are familiar with different types of fabrics, or at least brand names. Can you talk a little bit about this part of the process?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We obviously have an extensive library that we've pulled. We love fabrics, can you tell?
Right.
We've actually done extensive research over the years to pull from about 25 different mills all over the country.
Okay.
And they're everything from Sunbrella, which everyone knows. They've done a good job of trademarking.
Yes.
And
They make a good product, too,
they
right?
do.
Yes.
They definitely do.
Yeah.
And people are familiar with these maybe on their Dodgers or sail
Right.
covers.
Right.
So they have the Sunbrella rating, and that would be that they're
Okay.
durable.
Okay.
They have the coatings on them that make
Okay.
them UV coated
Okay.
and marine grade.
Yeah.
So there are these other mills that have done a good job of keeping up with Sunbrella
Okay.
and making some really fun designs and colors that are now on the market.
So they make it to the same standards,
Yes.
and they have a variety of things in addition to what Sunbrella has.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Exactly. So I would say the biggest differences are the price points.
Oh,
They run from about $30 a yard to $300 a yard.
okay.
So there are specialty mills that carry higher end fabrics. So, for example, what you're holding in your hand is this umbrella. Umbrella ranges in price from $30 a yard to about $100 a yard.
Okay.
Another mill like this, Link, this is probably about $100 a yard fabric.
I see. Okay.
To $200 a yard.
All right.
So this is something when you're working with a marine interior design firm, you should be able to tell them what your budget is and work
Okay.
within the budget differences.
Quick question. What's driving the price difference? Is it the brand, or is it the materials, or is it the patterns, or is it a combination of those factors?
It's a combination of those factors.
All
It's
right.
like, buying a car.
Yeah.
There's lower end price points and then there's a higher end price point.
Okay.
Sometimes it's just in the design and you'll be paying for the different designs that are available.
Okay. Okay. And you've got a bunch of books out here, and this is how
Yes.
you'd work with someone to select the right thing for them, what the patterns and some of the different fabrics and so on.
Right, and their color schemes. So there might be
Okay.
other fixed elements on board the vessel. So we'd work around, especially in that refit you were talking about.
Right.
We might be working around the bulkhead color or wallpaper or headliner or the wood. The wood is a big element in a boat. So we want to
Right.
take these fabrics
Right.
and make sure that they're all working. So we're either on the vessel
Okay.
or they're here in the library, and maybe they bring in a lot of pictures too to help us.
I see.
So there's every color under the rainbow that's available.
And different
So
patterns too. I
it's
see
a
all
lot
these
of fun.
different patterns.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And people aren't as afraid of pattern as they once were.
Right.
People are stepping out of this, solid color,
Solid color,
one
right.
color
That's what I always
cushion.
remember, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. But so that's what they do, is they come in and they help you understand their budget, and then a professional like yourself works with them to find the right color and fabric and pattern
Exactly.
among all the different mills options there are.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Of course, after you have the series of meetings, you talked about fabrics, you talked about the foam and so on. I guess the next point is to actually go out and physically measure the boat, the cushions and the surfaces on the boat, because typically you don't want to work with the old cushions, right?
Right. The old cushions will have broken down. They'll lose their shape, and we certainly don't want to make a new cushion using an old pattern. So
Right.
we make a new pattern.
Okay, and how do you do that? You've got a cushion here and a piece of plastic underneath. What's the process?
Yes, so we would take the measurements on board the vessel using our tools and special pattern material, and we would be tracing the surfaces and make some exact measurements, just outlining the area with some markers, with cutting it to the exact shape, and using our tape measure, getting all the measurements we need. We would write down everything that we need because, the only chance we have on that boat is to get all the measurements there, and then we go back to the cutting table.
Right.
So it's really one of those measure twice, cut once. We certainly don't want to have any trouble doing it, and we want to make the best quality product we can.
Absolutely, and this is not. It looks like an easy process in terms of just sketching a line on a piece of plastic, but boats have different angles. I think they call them bevels sometimes.
Exactly.
What's going on with that?
So when we're making a lot of mattresses that are shaped especially for
The berth?
the berths
Yeah.
on sailboats,
Yeah.
and even the cushions on a sailboat, they have a lot of bevels that will make angles that are 4 or 5 inches off.
Okay.
A straight angle.
It's not a straight 90-degree.
Right.
Right.
Which is very rare on any boat. But certainly a bevel is something that when we go on board and we bring all these materials and tools, we have to use extra materials and tools to get those bevels
Okay.
and measure about every 12 inches to get the
All
right
right.
one going
All right.
in 80-inch sections. So they're big sections. So we really have to get those right.
And that's where it gets tricky. So that's where the person at home shouldn't entertain the thought of making the measurements themselves. Typically, let the professional do it, because there's a degree of complexity that doesn't hop out at you until you actually have to do it, right?
Exactly. It's a lot of years in training and knowing the specific design of boats in general. It's a really unique business.
Yeah. Krisha, we've got a pattern laid out here over a fabric, and you made the pattern on the boat. Can you explain a little bit more about that process and how you go from the pattern to cutting the fabric?
Yes, of course. So we've made the pattern on board the boat. We've made all our marks. We've measured it. We've actually put the measurements on the template. If you can see, we've cut it out
Got
to
the
the
outline
exact
here.
shape.
Yep.
oriented the front of the fabric, where the zippers are going to be, the underlining, how thick the foam is going to be, and also, of course, the job name. And we know this boat is named Mahalo. It's kind of a fun print that they're using. And we're going to cut from here. So we want to make sure this is nice and flat before we do our cutting.
Okay.
We're going to weight it down.
All right.
And then Roy is going to show us how we cut.
Okay. So basically you start at one end with some very sharp scissors, right?
Exactly. And of course we give it a little room on the sides so that when we sew it on the seams, there's a little that we can use as a fold-in to the seams.
Oh, I see. Okay. Grisha, we got a massive amount of foam behind us here, and this is really the starting point for the process of making the cushions. What do we got going on here?
This is the starting point. They come in these big rectangular pieces. They're actually called buns.
Okay.
And this is one of those pieces of foam I was telling you about. It's the marine grade foam that we use.
Right.
And this one's about 30 inches by 84 inches, so it's a big piece of foam that comes.
Right, it's huge.
And it gets sliced down.
Okay.
And then we also do some more cutting on our tables to get it to be the right shapes and sizes.
Well, let's take a look at how that works.
So this one is, we're adjusting the measurement of the height.
Okay.
And we slice it through this big slicer.
It's like slicing a piece of bread.
It is. We keep the weight on it so that we get a nice even edge on the bottom.
Oh, okay. So this controls the height of the cushion.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So we make it to the right, the right specifications.
So a flat surface and a sharp saw.
Exactly.
Right? Okay.
Yep. Then we also have, it's rare that we get to work with some right angles, so there's also times where we have to make some contours in the foam.
Okay.
And we also have some other machines that we can use to make these curves and shapes.
Okay.
And Roy will show us how to make the contours.
And that's it.
That's it.
Grisha, we're kind of at a critical junction here where the different pieces come together, and we've got to take the fabric and we've got to sew it. And Roy's going to demonstrate, but can you give us a little overview of how this works and some of the things you guys think about?
Sure, and Roy's going to be stitching some of the fabric we talked about on that job. And we're, of course, using an industrial machine. It's not like your home machines. We actually have to change the needles often because we're going through some heavy-duty fabrics.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So that's really important. We're also using, in some applications, when it's an exterior project, we're using this UV-coated thread.
Okay.
And we're using, of course, the right foam and the right linings for these jobs.
Right. Okay. All right. And are there different patterns that the sewing machine makes, or is it typically a standard stitch? And
it's a standard stitch that we're using.
And it's a standard pattern. You don't want to get too close or too far away. And
right. When we're adding a contrast piping or piping to a job, we're putting it in between, just like this one is showing us.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes we're using a down stitch, or sometimes we're using a French seam. So there's also different constructions. So there are different patterns, and we'll go back to our pattern and find out what kind of stitching that we will be using on the job.
Right. Okay. And what we're seeing here is the final version of when it's been stitched, right?
Exactly.
Yep.
So we've cut the foam that's already inside here. It has a nice contour shape to it. It has that piping we were just talking about, and the zippers and the lining, and it's all ready to be installed.
Nice. Trisha, we got a mound of cushions here. Looks like they're ready to be reinstalled. Can you tell us a little bit about that process?
Sure. So hopefully we've made all our measurements on that template material.
All right.
And sometimes we actually make a chart of the whole boat from bow to stern and marked them all, labeled them.
Yeah.
And we'll go to the boat with everything, install it, and if we have to, in the rare case it crops up, we make a modification. But we usually hope to get it right the first
Get
time.
it right the first time. But you're there on the boat, and you can see
Yes.
physically if it needs to be modified, and then you
Exactly.
can jump right in and make those adjustments. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we have to install some of the backs or the snaps or
Right.
some of the other installation pieces need to go on board at that point.
Right. So this is like a fine-tuning, a tweaking process there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, Krisha, you know, every boat has cushions. I have cushions in my boat, and you get out in the boat, and people are always eating food, drink, so on and so forth, and then stuff gets on the cushions of all, like I say, both food and drink. Are there any tips? So people have invested a lot of time and money in creating a great upholstered surface. Are there any tips that they should use day to day for keeping the upholstery looking as good as it can?
Well, if you have any spots, any stains,
Yeah.
then you can take mild detergent. I would really recommend something very mild as a cleaner.
Like a
And-
dishwashing?
Exactly. Whatever you have in your galley, you could use that.
Okay.
Or Simple Green is always a good one
Simple
because
Green,
it's really
okay.
nice and mild. You can spot clean those.
Okay.
If you need to, I would unzip the fabric.
All right.
And then you would immerse it in some water
Okay.
with that cleaner.
Okay.
Also, Sunbrella endorses a product called 303, and it's a really good product to use to clean.
To do the spot cleaning?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
you can do that. The one thing I would recommend that after cleaning or using any kind of water, that you make sure that the surface is dry after.
Oh, really?
So you really want to dry that surface after you've put some water on it.
Yeah.
Because especially if you haven't taken the foam out. Dry it in the sun, dry it with some kind of heater.
All right. Don't throw
just
it
to
into the
make-
dryer, do you?
No, no,
right?
no. No, I wouldn't dry anything.
Okay.
Hang it dry. Take it out and
dry.
hang
Okay.
dry.
All right.
Yep.
All
You
right.
don't want any harsh chemicals, and you don't want anything to shrink.
Now, is it important, so if, again, someone's up my boat and they spill some stuff, is it important for me to hop right on that and take that stain out? Will they tend to set? Or do am I good if I let it go half the season and I loop back around to clean it?
Different fabrics have a little bit of a different rating. Of course, if you have bright white cushions, they will show a little bit more,
Right.
just because you picked a lighter fabric.
Yeah.
So there are fabrics that are more forgiving.
Yeah.
In general, they have a really durable rating, so they all are very, very good cleanability and durability.
Repel
Yes.
as much as naturally they tend to repel it a little
Yes.
bit. Yeah.
There are actually finishes that there's a Teflon finishing, and I'm sure everyone's familiar with that in their kitchen.
Right.
So some fabrics have a Teflon finish, and if you do have kids or dogs, I always recommend those.
Right.
So that's
Right.
sort of one level above the durability ratings of, say, a Sunbrella.
Okay, so you might spot clean during the season.
Yes.
And then is it recommended that you do a more thorough overall cleaning at the end of the season?
If something is really soiled, I would recommend taking it all apart,
Okay.
cleaning that maybe in some kind of a immersion in the water.
Big bucket of some type?
With some of the cleaner.
Okay.
Hang it dry. Try not to get the foam wet if you don't have to. If the
Okay.
foam is wet, then certainly dry it before you put any of the pieces back together and assemble any of the pieces.
Right.
And then any time that you do clean, it's nice to put, there's a protectant that comes with this
Okay,
as well. So you
okay.
would spray the protectant back on it after it's nice and dry, and also let that dry a little bit, and then assemble all the pieces. In terms of storing for longer periods of time,
Right, like
the
winter?
winter season
Yep.
up here in New England,
Yep.
of course.
Yep.
Take all the cushions off the boat if you can, if you have a nice dry place that
Yep.
you can store them somewhere.
Okay.
Some of the boatyards that we work with store the cushions.
I see.
And if you can, store them vertically, and
kinda
also
like that.
try to unzip them
Yeah.
and let them get some airflow.
Breathe, let 'em breathe a
They,
little
they
bit.
want to breathe. This
Right.
foam, once you've invested into new cushions,
Yeah.
you want to make them last.
Krisha, an important aspect of getting upholstery work done, you're not going to do it yourself, which is probably usually a bad idea, and you're working with a marine professional, you're looking for a marine professional, there's probably a series of questions you can ask to try to figure out if you've got the right person.
Absolutely.
What would be, if you were advising someone on finding a marine professional in their area, what would be the first point that you'd share with them in terms of what they should look for?
Sure. I would say that make sure you connect with that person. Make sure you feel like they're listening to you. You're coming to them with a need, so make sure that they're getting all the points that you're wanting to really get to, at the
Feel
end
like
of the
there's
day.
a dialogue going on as opposed to a
Right.
monologue, right?
Right.
Yeah.
You don't want them to be giving you the latest and greatest fabric when
Right.
you don't want that, or you want something simpler. You have
Right.
a simple design, you have a classic design, or you want something, completely modern. Or like I said, that when you have that first meeting, you're interacting with that customer and finding out,
Yep.
is it a family, or do they have pets, are they cruising?
Right.
What are they going to be doing? So make sure that they're really listening to what you want.
So if they seem to be talking a lot more than you, that's a bad sign. You want
Right.
them to be listening as much as
Exactly.
they're talking,
And
right?
taking some notes, of course.
Taking some notes.
Yeah.
All right. How about training and credentials? How important are they? How do they fit into this puzzle?
Yes, credentials. Certainly ask if you're looking for a marine professional. Ask about their credentials. Ask about their training. This isn't the type of business you get into overnight. It really
Okay.
takes years of training in the field, and it's a very specific trade. And they need to be able to get the right materials for the job. It's definitely not like residential design.
Okay.
There are very different materials. We've just gone over all the different things you have to assemble
Right.
to make this appropriate for those spaces.
Right.
So that's a big thing.
The
So
training,
ask
the
about the training
credentials
and
give
credentials.
evidence of having that knowledge and pull
Right.
it off.
Exactly.
How about just boating experience? Is that relevant to doing this type of work?
I think it's nice for someone to be able to understand how a vessel is used.
Okay.
And what are the applications, again, going back to the use of the boat. Sometimes storage is at a premium. So things that can be saving weight, saving storage. So it's nice that someone can understand those needs of a boat specifically.
Right. So
So again, go back to their credentials, yeah.
right. If it's a cruiser, if someone has some cruising experience, that would make them a little more in tune with what someone's looking for, sport fishing or racing or whatever, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah. So those
Exactly.
those three really, chemistry or dialogue, training, and experience. Those would be the three things you primarily look for.
Yes, and I would say also referrals, too.
Referrals. Okay.
Make sure that you can get a referral, a testimonial off of a website. Certainly, if someone could do their research and find that marine professional online, you can go to your local boatyard and ask about that professional that you're looking for.
Yep.
And fellow boaters, they're a wealth of information.
Yeah.
They're good, the bad, the ugly. Usually if something's worked out, they're happy to share, usually one way or the other.
Yeah, right.
But for us, one boat leads to another boat, one customer leads to another customer. So if you've done the job right, that quality customer kind of follows you.
Excellent. Yeah. Right. Krisha, it's hard to believe, but it's time to wrap up the show today. We've covered a lot of important aspects of design and in particular boat upholstery. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we close out the show today?
Sure. Paul, thanks for having us on the show.
Yeah.
We always love talking about projects on board, of course. The one thing I would just like to say is boat owners get the right professional to work with. I think doing their research, making sure it's the right professional, will really pay off between the boat owner and the design firm.
Yep.
And if anyone has any questions, we'd be happy to help them. They can reach us through our website, onboardinteriors.com.
Okay.
And like our tagline says, life is good on board.
It is good on board. Thank you for joining me
Thank you,
today.
Paul. Thanks for having us.
And thank you, Smart Boating viewers, for joining us. If you have questions or comments, please visit the website, www.smartboatingus.com. I hope you'll come back and join us again soon.